Through all kinds of episodes in this series, we've been talking about things that go on motherboards, but we really haven't talked about motherboards themselves, in particular, the many little denizens and where they live on the motherboards itself. So I've got myself a brand new motherboard here, and there are a couple of things we need to think about when we get those new motherboards. First of all, make sure it's going to come with a motherboard book. Now this is actually a physical printed book, which I like, but I'm old school like that. But you'll also have some type of optical media. This is going to have all your documentation, the motherboard book, but it's also going to have a lot of critical drivers for your particular motherboard. Along with that, we're going to have all kinds of USB dongles and SATA connectors and all kinds of stuff like that that are going to make it a lot easier for us to get our motherboard plugged in. And last and the most important thing of all that comes with a new motherboard, your little I/O area shim. Because if you don't have this, it's really hard because each motherboard comes with its own, because of its own unique connectors, this becomes very, very precious. So, what I want to do right now is we're going to take a look at a typical motherboard and make sure that you can recognize the different components. Let's take a look at this pretty little motherboard right here. Now, all we're going to do is a quick tour so we know the different denizens on here. And probably the best place to start is right here. This is a CPU, and this particular one is an AMD CPU. I'm a big fan of AMD. And moving right along, here we've got RAM. On this particular system, I've got 4 slots. Only 2 of them are populated with 2 sticks. I'd have to read that label, but I'm pretty sure each of these is 2 gigs, so it's 4 gigabytes of RAM on this particular system. What else do we have? Let's take a look over here. This is the chipset. Underneath this nice big cooling fin is my chipset. And if we follow this heat pipe along, underneath this cooling fin right here are a bunch of voltage regulator modules. Your system needs all kinds of different voltage, and those VRMs are providing that voltage, and they also generate a lot of heat while they're doing it. So let's take a look over here. Our expansion slots. So a quick peek here, I've got 2 single-lane PCI Expresses, and here's a 16-lane PCI Express. Here's some old PCI slots. And then over here is an interesting slot. Now, I want you to look at this real quick. At first glance, it looks like a 16-lane PCI Express, but it's not. What it really is an 8-lane PCI Express. Now, there's no way you're going to be able to see this on the video, and I had to actually dig through the motherboard book to discover this, but that particular slot is only an 8-lane PCI Express. Why they didn't use an 8-lane slot, I don't know, but they did, so these are the things we discover when we read our documentation. Let's go ahead and poke around a little bit more. Now, what I want to do this time is we're going to go right back to the motherboard, but this time what I want to do is talk about some of the little tiny components that most people don't even really pay attention to on a motherboard, but because we're nerds, we love this stuff. Where's a good place to start? How about right here? So these are a bunch of support chips. These are Super I/O chips for peripherals and network cards and sound cards. I don't know which one these are. And they're used to support all of our different types of I/O that are being used on this particular system. So what else do we have? Take a look right here. So this is the battery. And this is the battery which keeps the real-time clock alive when the system is not, well, actually when it's completely unplugged from everything. Otherwise that clock's going to keep running. What else do we have? Let's take a look way over here. That is actually the system ROM chip right there. So that's where my BIOS resides on this one particular system. And if we take a look right way over here in the corner, this is all my front panel connections. So my on-off switch and my reset button and all that type of stuff. And right next to it here, I'm not sure, but I think this might be a CMOS clear, where if I want to just clear my CMOS, I can hit that particular jumper. All right, so that's just some of the little denizens. Now, the only reason I can recognize these folks is because I've been looking at motherboards for a really, really long time. You would actually have to look at the schematics for your particular motherboard to recognize all of these different little chips. Most of the time, we don't even really worry about it. Okay, let's go back in one more time. But this time what I want to do is talk about all the different ways we connect to our particular motherboard. So USB and SATA drives and all the different ways we have internal connections to actually make things happen on our particular system. You ready? Into the breach. So I'm going to start way over here. Now these are all my USB connections. These are USB 2 connections simply because I recognize that particular type of connector. And this motherboard comes with lots of dongles that I can plug in to connect different types of USB stuff to it. All right, what else do we have? This is kind of a throwback. This right here is an old school serial port. Circa 1981 or whatever, I don't know. A lot of systems still support serial ports for different types of stuff, but this has got a serial port on it. Here are connections for things like sound. If I want to plug sound devices in, I can plug them in right here. What else do we have? Let's keep marching along. Here are some different type of fan connectors. What else do we got? Here's one of my power connectors right here. There's another power connector. March it along. There's some switches here. I have no idea what those are for. I'll read my motherboard book and find out. Here's another fan connector. Here's my main power connector. And then way over here are all of my SATA connectors for my hard drives, optical media, whatever I might want to have on my particular system. So that, my friends, is a quick and dirty tour of a typical motherboard. The A+ exam is going to be showing you these types of connectors. They're going to show you motherboards, and they're going to expect you to recognize who's who in the zoo here. So you know what? I'm going to put you to the test. I'm going to put some screens up right now of completely different motherboards than this one, and let's see if you can determine who's who in the zoo.